So I posted about my creepy neighbors lurking in the dark before. For anyone who doesn't feel like reading it, basically, my neighbors, a husband and wife, as far as I know, have been sort of harassing me for some time, but not in a way I could really do anything about. They were leaving rude notes in my mailbox, blocking my driveway with their vehicle as soon as I had gotten home, and then shouting abuse, those sort of things. In the encounter I wrote about previously, the pair were waiting for me at 3 a.m., lurking in the darkness. My motion security light was broken and basically ambushed me when I got home to complain about some insane shit I had nothing to do with. Since then, they've ramped up the aggression. Right out of the harassing neighbor's handbook, they've started wasting police time, calling in fake noise complaints or reporting my dog as unlicensed and unvaccinated, which wasn't true, and even if it was, how would they know that anyway? To be fair, I had been puppy sitting a friend's dog, which would occasionally yap at squirrels, upon which I'd immediately let him in. But that dog has been gone for some time now. Once while letting the dog in at the first bark, the man stuck his head out the window to scream at me to bring the dog inside. Something I was obviously already doing. Hilariously, as he was screaming, he called 7 a.m. an ungodly hour. 7 a.m. is past city noise ordinance hours. If his goal was to be quiet, he failed. But I suspect his goal wasn't to be quiet. He just wanted an excuse to yell at me. I simply asked him, "Is this how adults behave?" and went inside. This was the last time I ever said a word to either of them. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure he watches me from my window whenever I'm outside, just looking for any excuse to scream and hurl insults at me. Recently, I've been outside with my dogs whenever they're outside. I know for a fact that they haven't made a single peep, and yet I still get aggression from my neighbors. But it's only me, a 4'11" girl that they bother. They never say a word to my 6'3" muscle-bound boyfriend, nor anything to me when he's around. Once, while I was getting mail, the woman saw me out of her window, left her house and started stomping towards me. I braced myself for some abuse. Then she noticed my boyfriend waiting for me around the car. She immediately stopped dead in her tracks and pretended to get mail by herself. My boyfriend leaves country now and then for work, and it seems my neighbors are watching and waiting. They usually only wait a few days to be sure he's gone. What makes me write today is that they've stopped bothering to even make up excuses for me. They've apparently learned my schedule and now wait for me at night quite regularly. More than once, I've caught them lurking in the dark. Sometimes I'll be putting out the trash at night, only to see the woman stalking towards me out of the darkness. When I see her coming towards me, I abandon my task and go back inside and just wait for her to leave. Last night when I arrived home, the man was waiting for me in the darkness. I never saw him, but I heard him. As soon as I got out of my car, he shouted like he was talking to someone else. My neighbor Helen is and then what followed was a string of insults that continued until I got into my house. I really don't know where he was in the darkness, or if there was actually someone with him. There are enough lights outside that he would have to be deliberately avoiding them to be unseen. I only ever heard his voice. I'm not sure if there was really a second person in the dark with him, or if he was alone and just pretending to talk to someone else. I'm not sure which is creepier. But when I went inside, I grabbed my pepper spray and then stepped back outside with my phone, ready to record. But it seemed that he was gone. To me, this means that he was really just lurking outside, just to wait for me. I should say that I haven't spoken a single word to these people since the last time I wrote here. I have no idea what their problem is. Seriously, the last time I had anything to do with either of them at all was earlier this week, when I heard a car strike the snow in front of my then unplowed road in front of my house. I stepped outside to push the stranger's car free. The neighbor woman happened to come outside during this. I never said a word to her as we pushed the car free. They don't even seem to be looking for excuses or making up things to complain about anymore. Now it's just lurking around outside in the dark just to harass me. I'm documenting all of this and plan to get a restraining order or something as soon as I can get some proof. I'm definitely getting a security camera as soon as I can afford one. Last week, the front tire of my truck, on the side of their house, got a flat tire right before a big blizzard hit. Now these tires were needing a replacement anyways, and I couldn't see any obvious puncture in the flat one, but a part of me wonders if this really just was a coincidence. It would be an easy target for neighbors lurking in the dark between houses. I've started sleeping with my pistol on the nightstand again. Update. The police came and talked to me. They seemed sympathetic and said they'd file a report, but didn't seem to write down much. Maybe they just didn't really need to, or maybe I just prattled on a bit and gave more information than was actually needed for them. I feel like such a baby explaining everything that happened. Even just talking about it raises my anxiety sky high. I'm pretty sure I was shaking. I don't think they just took down one side of the story as gospel, but I do think they can see that I felt very unsafe in my own home because of this. Unfortunately, as it is so late, we had to agree that it was best they not go talk to the neighbors tonight, as they would surely complain about the late visit and possibly want to retaliate even more. The police told me that the documentation was helpful, so it was a good thing I called them, as now we have ongoing records being collected. But not much else can be done as far as charges go until I get something recorded. They told me what I'd need for harassment charges and what I'd need for a restraining order. Also, they advised me that I should install security cameras and record on my phone when I can. They even told me that I could legally use my phone to record them on their own property if they were presently harassing me. Thanks to everyone who's here for your support. Hopefully, I won't have to post a third story, but we will see, I guess. Alrighty, so growing up, I had almost no parental supervision between the hours of 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's when my mother came home from her gig as a pizza delivery person. I didn't particularly mind. I liked being alone. The only problem was that I didn't have my own set of house keys, and 9 out of 10 times my mom would forget to leave it under the mat from when I got home from school. That was frustrating, but still, not a huge deal. The local library was maybe a mile away. I suppose that's how I became such a staunch bookworm. Nearly every day after school for almost a decade, I walked a mile from my house to the local library, where I'd curl up with a book and read straight from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's when the library would close and I'd just wait for my mom outside. I guess weirdos noticed when a little girl tends to be alone all day, every day, and I had sort of an exotic look. Long, white, not blonde hair, and blue eyes. I was also a very friendly person, which didn't work too well in my favor. I was nearly abducted roughly 4 times between the ages of 13 and 16, but I'll just go over the most frightening one now, which happened to me when I was around 13 years old. It was a typical day, and I was walking along the main road from my apartment complex to the library, when a skinny, bearded man in a white truck pulled up across the road, rolled his window down and signaled urgently for me to come over. Me? I wonder, pointing to myself, and the man nodded, so I wait for the traffic to die down and cross the road. Can I help you, I ask? The man then explained that he needed directions to a nearby music store. Normally, I'm shit at giving directions, but the store he's asking about is literally right along the main road we were on. He just needs to go straight through the next 2 lights and it's on his right. Easy, right? But then, the man gave me a confused look. What were those directions again? Just go through the next 2 lights and it's on the right. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the area. Could you just maybe get in the truck and direct me there? Honestly, if the directions had been any more complex, I might have fallen for it out of the goodness of my heart, but there was no way an adult was too stupid to follow these directions. Sorry, I mumbled, and I dashed back across the street, while the man in the truck screamed, "Wait!" I thought it was over, but he followed me, A second later, he made an illegal U-turn so fast that the tires left a mark on the asphalt and started coming right at me. There was a church nearby, so I quickly ducked into the parking lot and hid behind a bush, hoping that the man would go away. But he drove his truck right into the parking lot and slowly started to circle around, looking for me. I sat completely still for a minute or so until he finally gave up. I waited a bit longer in case he was just waiting outside for me. But in the end, I was able to continue to the library, where I bought a hot chocolate from the vending machine and dove into Cirque du Freak. So creepy truck guy, let's never meet again. I would like to share with you all one of the most creepiest childhood experiences I had whilst at primary school. I think I was around 8 or 9 at the time, and I distinctly remember it being summertime. My primary school had a main big building and a mobile classroom attached onto the back of the end of the building, and it was at this time that the mobile classroom was my classroom, and I spent most of the 6-hour school day in there. The back end of the school consisted of a large field and a small wooden ramshackle fence that separated the school's land from the farmer's land, which was technically adjacent. The farmer's land led downhill and into a valley, and also has a small river and a wooded area. Now, back to my classroom. Structurally, it was supported by not-so-big concrete blocks placed underneath the 4 corners of the classroom, combined with some sturdy metal from what I can recall. However, the way it was supported meant that there was a large crawl space and was big enough for an adult to crawl into, and still have enough space to turn around. The crawl space was covered with a thin chicken wire to stop children from going into there. So, back to the story. As I said, it was summertime, and it was the end of the school day. I was cartwheeling on the field because I had just learned to master them. Lots of other children were messing around in the field too, because it was such a hot day and spirits were high. As I was cartwheeling past my classroom, something caught my eye. The chicken wire covering the crawl space had been cut somehow, so I decided to peer underneath. And I shit you not, staring back at me was a man. He had dark hair and a brush-like mustache, but that wasn't all. He was laying on his stomach atop a single mattress, holding to his chest a gray bunny rabbit teddy bear. I'll never forget the second our eyes locked, and I felt something that I can now as an adult describe as predatory. I ran away as fast as my legs would carry me to alert the teachers, and all I remember next is chaos and pandemonium, and being ushered with everyone off the school grounds as the police were arriving any moment. I remember the sound of sirens. I don't recall hearing much about the guy who had been caught hiding underneath the classroom, except that he had been arrested. After this incident, the school tightened its security, and the school caretaker was always patrolling the school grounds. We were also educated frequently on stranger danger, as this incident had certainly shaken the school's pupils, parents, and especially me. A few years ago, when I lived in upstate New York, something really freaky happened to me. If you've ever been to upstate New York during the winters, you would know that it can snow a lot. I usually spent snowy nights watching TV. I lived about a mile or so from any other house, and my roommate was out. Now, I'll be honest, being alone made me feel extremely uncomfortable. I've always had an overactive imagination, and a small noise would really freak me out. Like I was saying, my roommate was out, and it was snowing heavily. It was probably like 9 or 10 at night, and I was watching TV like normal, when all of a sudden, I heard a crunch outside, like someone stepping on ice. I immediately tensed up, and my mind raced to every possibility. It wasn't my roommate since I didn't hear a car. I listened in horror as I could hear crunches getting louder. I ran into my room and locked the door. I got out my shotgun, and I grabbed my phone ready to call 911, just in case. I know it might seem like I was overreacting, but remember, this is at night, in heavy snow, miles away from any other house. Who could possibly be outside? The footsteps stopped at some point, and I eventually fell asleep, and when I woke up, my roommate was back. I went outside to see if I could find any evidence of who was outside, and what I found outside still haunts me to this day. I saw footprints in the snow coming out of the woods and circling my house. The footprints were filled in for the most part, so it was hard to figure out where they were going. The scariest part of all of this is that the footprints stop outside of my bedroom window. The other footprints were filled in, but these were fresh, as if someone had been standing there all night since the snow stopped early this morning. To this day, it still scares me. I don't know what kind of person would be out in the woods at this time of night, in the snow. The fact that while I was in my room, they were standing outside of my window still really freaks me out. And I moved out of that house a few months later. Three years ago, when I was 19, I had just gotten hired at my local mall. Even though I've always hated the mall and have lots of weird experiences there, I was desperate after quitting my previous job and figured with coworkers around, I'd be safe. It was around 6 p.m. on a winter night, and I was asked to come into the store to fill out some paperwork before I started working. I was seated on a bench near the back of the store, next to a boy who had also just been hired. We made some small talk about the job and how the piles of paperwork were easily the largest and most ridiculous we'd ever seen. I thought he seemed cool. We quickly got to work and started filling out the forms, mostly in silence. At first, I was so absorbed in the papers that I didn't realize I was being watched. I looked up to see a tall man, about 6'5", maybe around 45 years old. He was standing about 5 feet away from me, and his eyes were locked onto me. I stared right back at the man, and after a few seconds, asked if I could help him. He asked some very vague question about the store. I gestured to the huge pile of papers in my lap and told him that I hadn't started working yet and could not help him. Yet he just continued to stare. I'm a small girl at 5'1". I've been creeped on plenty of times and learned a long time ago not to be polite about it. What? I asked impatiently. Do you have a boyfriend? He stuttered. Yes, I lied, looking back down and continued writing. How old are you? He persisted. Sorry, I'm busy, I said, not even looking up. He stood there. He asked me when I started working and if I lived close by. He asked if my boyfriend was good to me. I ignored him, and finally he walked away. The boy sitting next to me ignored this whole encounter. I decided he wasn't cool as I thought. A few minutes later, I noticed a man wandering aimlessly around the store, occasionally looking at me. I wondered if my new coworkers would think I was being dramatic if I asked to be walked to my car. But the next time I looked around, he was gone. Relieved, I finished what felt like a millionth written form and pieced the fuck out of that store. I scanned around as I made my way towards the mall's exit, and I saw no sign of the man anywhere. I couldn't see anything outside of the glass doors, but I could see that it was totally dark. I walked outside, and as soon as the door closes behind me, I am literally lifted off my feet. The man from the store is picking me up, kind of rocking back and forth in what is the most terrifying hug sort of thing I've ever experienced in my life. He then put me down and told me that I'm everything he was looking for in a girl and how nicely he'll treat me. He told me that as soon as he had saw me, he knew I was the one. Of course, I didn't see one other person in the parking lot. At first, I was stunned. Then he reached for my hand when fight or flight finally kicked in. Before I knew it, I was stupidly booking it to my car, keys already in hand, not even looking back. I looked up for a split second as I was unlocking the door and sliding in my car, immediately relocking the doors as I got in, and what I saw was nothing. I didn't see him anywhere. What the fuck? My first thought was, he's in my car, and I looked in the back seat, even though I saw when I entered my car that it was empty. I didn't know if he was hiding behind a car. I didn't even know if he was hiding behind my car, or even getting in his car. I don't even know if he ever followed me at all, but I was 100% mentally prepared to run him over should he come running from somewhere. I didn't know if he took a lucky guess as to which one of the mall's exits I would come out of, or if he saw which way I had entered. I got out of that parking lot real quick. I was frantically looking in my rearview mirror as I sped home, half expecting to see the dude pop up from my back seat. I didn't see anyone following me, and started to calm down. That is, until I saw a huge black truck ripping down the road behind me at top speed. It was a pretty good distance behind me, but I noped out of the situation without a second thought and pulled into a hotel parking lot that I was luckily next to at the time. I turned my headlights off and parked amidst the cars in the lot. I lowered myself and watched the truck continue down the road. I have no idea whether the car was him or just a person driving very fast, but I didn't move for probably about 5 minutes. I was on high alert, ready to poop my pants at the drop of a pin. Never seeing the truck return, I decided to continue the drive home, taking a detour from the road I was on. No one followed me the rest of the way, and I quit my job before I even started. I cried on the inside for a couple of hours.